Well, hello dear friends, it's nice to be with you again. I'm not sure if you're like me, that when you've got your latest Daphne's diary you sit and drool over it for a few days and then you sort of tentatively think, well, I'm going to start cutting out some of the best images and then taking out the papers that you can use, which are printed every issue. But then you're also left at the end of that exercise with a whole lot of bits and pieces. And your bits and pieces might look something like this, where you've perhaps cut out some little bits and pieces of watercolor. You might have a few little images which you think are fun that you've cut out. It could be just something that you like the border of, the dots there. This has just got some fruit, some little images, but you would end up with a whole variety of different bits and bobs, and you think what to do with them. I mean, look at this lovely one. But, you know, by the time you fussy cut that out, it might not be something. So with something like that, I might decide if I had to fold that in half to make a nice little book, I would actually get a little bit of that gum on either side, and I could make a little booklet, something like this one, just using very, very simple pamphlet stitch. So here again, I've taken just some random images. I just love that sea sort of theme. I had some papers which I have really just clean my brushes on, which have different colors, and interspersed those with some coffee papers and then just literally made 2 holes and threaded some thread through to make a little pamphlet stitch book. Then you get all the lovely borders and things that are left on the sides of Daphne's diaries when you pull out recipe cards and stuff, and with those you can quite easily make something like these, which are lovely little tags. Yeah, I just used some book pages here, inked up the edges and made some lovely little tags, so those are rather fun. Excuse me. Then if I go to some of the other things that I've got, one of the pages had this lovely little envelope. It had a page with a lot of sort of paper cut flowers, and then this was part of a Christmas card that we've got, so I've double-sided tape on this reverse side here. And if I just peel this off, I'll find that I'll be able to make myself a nice piece of ephemera with this. So let's have a look and see how this goes. Yeah, you don't have to go and look for really expensive things. Sometimes things just speak to you. Sometimes you're just lucky when you're playing around, and sometimes things just need to sit and percolate for a little bit before you have the inspiration. But with this little envelope, I immediately thought of this Christmas card that had been given to us, and my idea was that if I take that and I just position that carefully on the edge like that, I've got myself quite a nice little tag that I could actually use. So there's a nice little idea that's very simple. Then recently I purchased some Tim Holtz ephemera. This was field notes that I got, and when I looked at the inside of the cover I thought, gosh, that is just such a beautiful mottled stone look. And I had these 2 little vases, so potentially I might stick those down to make a piece of ephemera. I love this little window looking out, and I just had a scrap piece of dyed paper, so I've just stuck it to that. Nothing very fancy, but that on its own, if I were to stick onto a piece of book page or use as a cover, would work out to be something rather fun. This was some hand dyed card that I'd made, and I've cut out one of the little fairies. I did go around the edges of the fairy with a little black pencil crown just to make the design pop, but I could make a tag, I could make a belly band, I could do all sorts of things with that. And similarly, if I was to use this picture, which was just a little basket, I could also glue that on and wrap that around a tag like that. Here's another example of a piece of paper which is really beautiful. There's some more of that sea theme. It probably is from that piece of paper. I probably wouldn't use it together. I might cut it off here and use that just as a tag, perhaps in conjunction with that little booklet. And then here I've got the lovely watercolors that I can use. This one again too, I could also fold into maybe even a matchbook like that. That would be rather fun. And then here I have some book pages which I've glued together and just put a bit of gesso on and mottled it with some watercolor paints. And I have these lovely pictures of chopsticks that came out of a recent issue of Daphne's Diary, and I might stick that in the middle just to make a belly band. Then in the sort of beginning of the book, there are often pages which have got products that they're advertising apart from these little round stickers, and then I usually would stick those onto a piece of book page and use them in some format for one of my journals. So let me pop aside those ideas for now, and I will just show you some of the things that I have continued to make with the Daphne's Diary. This came off the side image of one of the pages. It was rather beautiful, and it repeated on the other side on another spread. So I've taken that piece from the second side and I've glued it on the inside of a piece of paper, taken a book page, folded it over, cut out a little notch and stuck on a fan that was there, just so that there is a bit of detail on that side to create a little sort of pocket. Then I have just a piece of offcut from a scrapbooking page, and I think I might stick that on there, and in all likelihood when I come to use it, there's a good chance I will rather cut it off at that stage, but that just gives me quite a nice little combination of things to use. I made another little pocket using also a background image which I glued down, folded my pocket over, and then this was a border where I'd cut out some of the images, and I think that I would probably take that little image there, just so much, and cut that and stick that down onto here, or perhaps here, just to add a bit of detail, but can play with those as we go along. Then there was rather a lovely piece of paper that came out in a spread. It had, I think it had, maybe it had fans in it, but it certainly had a bird in it, which, yeah, is rather a beautiful piece of paper. I wonder if I've got the bird here. Yeah, here's the bird. So I think that came out from there. This was the reverse side of this spread, so it has a very Japanese feel, and this in itself would just make a lovely little book, wouldn't it? But maybe extend the cover a little bit so the bird is mounted on something. So I took this lovely sort of pattern paper here, and the first thing that I did was just to glue it onto a piece of sort of turquoisey color paper and then onto some hand-dyed book page, and I've made that into a little tag. Then this was one that I'm working on. This was that sort of turquoise page. I've used a bit of washi tape, some beads and some hand stitching. I haven't mounted that onto anything yet because I'm not sure what I'm going to use it for. This was another piece. You can see page 48, Daphne's Diary, a bit of washi tape and a button, just as an embellishment. You could stick some plain paper on there just to make that into a journal card. And then this one, I used one of the decorative pieces of Daphne's Diary which I stitched around, and then also just used little pieces of the same paper, you know, just cutting out the edges and using what I have. So there's those pictures. Then there was an advert at the back of the Daphne's Diary which had I think it was the 2023 planner in it, and it had all these images which I rather liked, so I glued those down, stitched around the edges, popped a little eyelet, and again could put a piece of paper on there to make that into rather a super tag. The other pages which you can use would be things like adverts. Those would be like a plate that was advertised in one of those images. That could be nice to be made into a pocket. There was this thing to make a paper doll which was really nice. I haven't made the paper doll yet, but I had that image, and as I was stitching it, this piece tore off, and I rather like that. It's sort of something in the making, so one can play with that. I love this gentle feel of that sort of bedroom with the flowers and things, so I stuck that page down, made a little tuck spot here, and that is just reminiscent of quite a lot of the sort of French style, sort of almost South African style that they have of different things. So I really enjoyed that, maybe a little bit of Dutch origin. Then quite often in Daphne's Diaries you've got things to do with paints and brushes, and I glued down this brush set to make this sort of long tuck spot, and I could make a little tab to go in there, and shows you sometimes you do things and you're not thinking, and then you suddenly stop yourself. So I started to stitch around this thinking, and go all around the picture, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I'm going to sew in my tuck spot. So I've just done it on 2 sides, but I like that, and it's worked out really nicely. This was just an image that I liked. This was one whole image that had that watercolor feel of these leaves. I could superimpose some more of those onto here if I wanted to create something different. And this was from page 3. But I quite like that, and just to highlight the food element there, I stitched around that with a darker zigzag pattern. I'll pop that one there, and then I showed you one of those bottles that were in one of the images before, and this was a piece of book page that I just had some gesso on. I mounted the picture onto a bit of green cardstock and a little bit of washi tape, and this I think I'd make into a nice belly band. This was a rather large postage stamp that I found in the Daphne's Diary, but I've just stuck it onto a piece of paper. Not too sure what I'm going to do with it, so I haven't done much more with that at this stage, but that will be something that I can play around with later. And then this was the other part of that journal advert in Daphne's Diary, the one that had the colours and things, this one here. So this was all kind of together, and you can see that that's the same little bookmark. So I've made this into a little tuck spot. I could pop an envelope in here with something in, I could pop journal cards in, but nevertheless it gives me something to play with. I loved the colours of these golden leaves and the fruit. It is a little sort of reminiscent of that. And again, this could be made into a belly band, it could be a tuck spot, I could fold it over and make it into a little book. There's endless possibilities for that. This was some of the watercolor fruit, and again I've just simply put this onto a piece of book page. No plans for it at this stage, just waiting for something to pop up to me. This was a little wedding card on this lovely piece of paper that had the golden dots, and I made that into a little envelope which I've stitched around, so you could pop in something there, so that's rather fun. This was an advert for some of the stickers that were there, so this was in the sort of beginning pages of the book, and I thought that's rather nice. I could highlight that and make that into a tag, or it could be a little belly band, or I could make it into a little sort of 3D book of some sort. Lots of possibilities just with that. And then we get to the sort of the fun part of the book, where you have these tiny little images that sometimes are jewels. This was just part of a display in someone's shop, so I've made that into a little tag. Let's pop that over there. This was in the beginning part of the magazine, just with these little things. I think they were advertising crafts to do with conkers, if I remember correctly, and I've stuck that down onto a piece of scrapbooking paper, so that's worked out nicely. That was also an ad, but again, it's got a lot on it already, because it's got wording, it's got florals, it's got a nice background. You can do plenty with that. Another little of the Daphne's Diary images, which is so charming, just to make a little tag. And I've left the space blank here so that I could put some wording on that at a later stage. And then this was just a little mug that was being advertised. I could put a little eyelet on that and make it into a tag, something to go into a tuck spot. I rather like this little thing. It was just a little page illustration which had the ribbons, and I stuck that onto a piece of card with the ribbon hanging out, so that I wouldn't have to put ribbon on myself, but it will give me something to play with. Just taking use of the cover of this 2023 diary from Daphne's Diary, and I've just stitched that onto some card. Yeah, no particular plan for that, just showing you what you can do. Here's another little thing that I've stuck down that could be an embellishment for a page. And then here's a fun little fox, isn't he sweet? Little face painted onto a leaf. I think that's rather charming and something that you could use to embellish, or you could cut it off and just use it as a stamp. And this was just a small little image advertising the center big piece of decorative paper that's in the magazine. So just to show you. So just a few of my random ideas of what I've been playing with, just using up scraps, having fun over the holiday period, and I hope this gives you some inspiration if you don't already have it. But I'm in a desperate stage of trying to actually use some scraps up, so this has been great fun while I've been busy. Lovely to be with you again. Thanks for joining me. If you've enjoyed the video, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Bye for now.